Hey, welcome to Men on Everything, our show where it's three guys who have reasonable intelligence talking about things that are happening in the news. I'm Tony Scott. There's Mark Clark. There's Troy Johnson. Fellas,
yo,
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Happy Kwanzaa. Happy Hanukkah.
Well, Kwanzaa has started. Kwanzaa starts on the 26th.
Well, it's coming. I'm just saying. You know, the way we do this show, I should probably say Happy New Year.
Just in case we don't see you.
Let me say to my brothers, Hotep, Assalamu alaikum. And what's the other one, Troy? Guys, what's the other one? It's a right. Kwanzaa. What's the greeting in Kwanzaa?
Abaragani.
Abaragani. My brothers Hotep, Abaragani, and Assalamu alaikum.
All right there. And we'll stop right there.
When you hear a knock on your door.
Right.
I'm sorry, guys. I just met my brother from the Zulu Nation in New York, so it's fresh in my mind, my brother.
Gotcha.
By the way, Africa Mabata sends his condolences and hellos.
So Bill Cosby's daughter, Erin.
What?
Erin Cosby has decided, or it's Evan, actually. I think it's Evan. He does have a daughter named Erin, but this is Evan, who's 38 years old. She has spoken out.
Uh-oh.
She says he is the father you thought you knew. The Cosby Show was my today's TV reality show. Thank you. That's all I would say.
That's the same, similar to what Camille said. She said,
Yeah, Camille basically said the same thing.
The man that you know is the man that you thought you know is who you know, or something like that.
Yeah.
Now, you guys both know my wife and my kids. Do you think my wife would be talking about Mark is the man that you know? Or do you think there'd be a silence?
Yeah, but you know what?
I think there'd be silence.
But I think you keep it pretty real, man.
I would be like, no comment.
Right.
I mean,
be like, how about the Nationals, man?
I feel you, Camille. I feel you, Evan. I feel you, but I don't know. I don't know. The overwhelming evidence is so strong. I don't know.
But accusations are not evidence.
Well, I guess this is what I had a good conversation the other day with somebody. They said, which was interesting. They said, well, Camille, what else is she going to do? And I said, well, I'm kind of shy. He said, I think she knew what he was up to. I said, you think she knew that he had, he was raping women? He said, no. He knew, allegedly, he knew that she knew that he was messing around, and she's known a long time. I said, okay, but that's different. He said, in some women's eyes or some people's eyes, it's about the same thing. I was like, what? But do you guys agree that the wife of a famous person whose husband may be cheating or whatever just kind of says, it is what it is? And do you also agree that it's the same thing? Like if you know your husband is a philanderer versus knowing your husband is doing all this kind of stuff, are you to blame if you just kind of give him a pass or turn a blind eye?
Well, I think you're talking about two different things. So you're talking about infidelity versus drugging women and then raping them. That's entirely different things.
Right.
I know men who are married and who have admitted to cheating and admitted they can't help themselves, but rape is something they would never ever. That's just a whole. Rape is an act of violence.
Yes, I agree. But let me ask you this.
Even when you drug someone and then you rape them, that's still an act of violence. What Camille says, what else would you expect her to say? Right? She's been married to the man for, if not over 50 years, at least 50 years. They've been married a very long time. And she probably knows that he has, in fact, been unfaithful to her. She probably doesn't think that it's rape. Like I said, there's a huge difference. And, these accusations are just that. There is no proof. Where's your proof?
Well,
where is your proof that he actually raped you? Where's your proof? I think Evan Cosby says that I think she was talking about Beverly Johnson. How is it that you remember certain things, but you don't remember other things? And it was at the same location, at the same thing. You remember everything, but you don't remember anything else happen. How do you do that? I mean, you selective amnesia. How does that work? She's defending her father. She said, it's a horrible thing to rape someone, but it's also a horrible thing to accuse someone when you know it's not true.
Well, let me ask you.
And unless you have evidence, where do we go from here? You got 20-something women who saying that they were victims of Bill Cosby.
Well, let me interject.
But where's your evidence, Troy?
Well, I was going to say there is now, along with the allegation, there are a pair of witnesses that support a claim that the woman at the Playboy Mansion, that they may have seen that situation. That's what the lawyer is saying. And then, so, now you got a little bit of meat going on the bone. I mean, that's all going to have to be vetted out, which is actually what Camille Cosby was talking about. She's like, she compared this to the UVA rape scandal that Rolling Stone screwed that story up about. She's saying, you're not vetting these people. They're giving their allegation, and the media is running with what they have to say without doing any background information. So, I mean, everything is in a pickle right now. It seems like, of course she's going to stand up for her husband. Of course his children are going to stand up for him. I think the thing that I find interesting about this conversation is people are very torn on this situation. Obviously, a lot of people feel like Bill Cosby did it. And there are too many people out here floating around that have an allegation of some sort. Maybe not all of them are on point, but come on, where there's smoke, there's fire. Then there's another group of people who completely believe, and I've had a couple of conversations with people like this, who believe that Bill Cosby has been set up 100%. They believe that the question kind of was, who did Bill Cosby piss off in Hollywood to get this kind of situation put down on him? And I'm like, it seems difficult to try to control. You can't really control the news, the flow of news in that kind of way. And would you need 20 accusers to do that? 20 plus to do that? If you wanted to railroad Bill Cosby, you could have done that with a couple of people. Not only that, the observation I also thought was interesting was this story was huge before the Ferguson verdict, and completely went away, obviously, because the news story changed. But then, bam, more accusers. After that kind of died down, he's right back at the focal point of the news. So, to me, that where there's smoke, there's fire, I think is at least worth investigating.
Well, here's the problem, I think, and then I guess I guess what happens is Bill Cosby has all the money in the world and had all of the moral clout in the world. This comes out, right? The first 5 or 6 come out, okay? Bill Cosby goes into saving my reputation mode and uses all the access that he has, because he's innocent, to not only say, hey, this is ridiculous and a setup, but I will not stand by and let my reputation and my family's reputation be besmirched by these accusations. By the way, that's the first time I ever used the word besmirched.
Very nice.
Now, he's got all the money in the world. All you got to do is say, I didn't do it, and book every damn show. And even if people say, well, you don't want to start doing that because it's kind of like the battered, when did you stop beating your wife argument? No. If he made the rounds to all the people that he knows and sat down and took the interview, we would all have a different view. Then your family comes up and says, hey, my husband is the same person that you guys grew up with. Now, he stopped it. You know what I mean? What started this whole momentum was he didn't stop it. And unlike most people, like us, if it was us, we'd just be like, no, I didn't do it, or whatever. He could have stopped it. So that's the big question, Tony. That whole thing about legally what? No, the bigger question about before the legal question is why did Bill Cosby, the most powerful African American man in Hollywood, let this happen to him? Why didn't he stop? The interviews, they wanted the interviews. They did not deny him interviews. He didn't take them. Yeah. He didn't want to talk about it. So
I think.
Go ahead.
But I think that on many levels, we have to remember.
And he could sue all of them too. He could sue everybody too. Go ahead.
Yeah, but I mean, I was going to say that to me, it's like Bill Cosby, the level that he's at, you just can't come out and say, I didn't do that. There has to be a strategy. And it appears that the strategy that he went with may have backfired by keeping silent for as long as he did. He has started to speak out a little bit. But when and I spoke about this the last time we did the show, was like when you're Bill Cosby in this situation, everything you say potentially could be used against you in a potential lawsuit. Now the question becomes then though, how can there be a lawsuit because the statute of limitations has clearly run out both civilly and criminally?
Right. It could still be
so I don't know exactly what strategy he was using to employ. Maybe he was just hoping, I'm Bill Cosby, I'm the most powerful black man in Hollywood, this will blow over. Maybe that was the strategy. And if it was, he sadly miscalculated because he didn't take into account the power of social media.
Yes.
Yes.
Kathy Lee Gifford, she was on TV today saying that Bill Cosby tried to kiss her some years ago when she was his opening act on his comedy tour. And that he fixed her some cappuccinos. And he tried to kiss her, but she says, no, Bill, we're friends. And he says, okay, good night. This is what she said this morning.
By the way, do not drink that By the way, do not drink cappuccino and good night.
So what was the purpose? Kathy Lee's experience, nothing happened. So at this point, to me, her experience that she talked about this morning was nothing more than piling on.
Well, but
you're piling on.
But Tony,
that doesn't help anything.
But Tony, you're coming from the perspective of an old school point of view. no. Tony represents the old way, Troy. The inward moral way. That's over, Tony. At the end of the day, his ass. It's like yes, people are piling on because you realize you got hoodwinked. First of all, Bill Cosby should have been selling coffee. As many damn coffee drinks he's made in his lifetime.
He could open a Starbucks.
Yes, that was his real calling. But sleepy Starbucks. But yeah, I think, Tony, like you said, I think he totally. If that was a strategy, that was the worst strategy in the world.
And that's very possible that it was the worst.
It was the worst strategy in the world because now, and even your wife and your daughter speaking up before you doesn't make sense either. Here's the other thing. If let's say Bill Cosby didn't rape, right? Let's say he just was unfaithful, right? And your wife comes out and makes a statement that he's the same guy that you thought he was. See, I think that doesn't play. I think the wife and the kids are off too. It doesn't play. At the end of the day, at the very least, Bill Cosby was not the guy we thought he was. At the very least, he was not the guy we thought he was. And y'all telling me that he was the guy that I thought he was. You know what I'm saying? So I think it doesn't really play. So we don't believe y'all. It sounds like you guys are just saying what you need to say because obviously, if he was the guy we thought he was, this stuff wouldn't even be in play. So, and you're right, Tony. Legally, he's clear. Legally, you're clear. But in the court of public opinion, ain't no coming back from all this. And I think, again, if he didn't, in fact, do it, it's time to speak up, Bill. It's time to sit down with Oprah, somebody you trust, and say, what the hell happened, Bill? So I didn't do it. Like I said, Troy and Tony, it's expired as far as the charges are concerned. He could sit there and say, look, I didn't do it,
But he could still face a civil suit. There's no statute of limitations on that.
Yeah, but there's
no statute of limitations on civil issues?
Huh?
On a civil lawsuit?
I don't believe.
But the evidence still is not there.
That's the plan that Gloria Allred, who is the lawyer for some of
Well, Gloria Allred wanted him to waive his statute of limitations and then put $100 million in escrow that would be passed out to the victims. So, of course, if it's $100 million, she gets 30 of that because she gets a third, right?
But the the police department in Los Angeles said they would listen to these allegations as well. So I mean, there's a way.
Yeah, but listening and actually being able to do anything about it, I think, are two different things. This I do know is that he will not go to jail because clearly the statute of limitations have run out. I think the only crime where there are no statute of limitations is murder.
Right. Yeah.
You know, so Mark, you're in New York, and the protests have been going on there, man. There was a press conference yesterday where police were pretty angry at protesters for how they were treating the police, and you're there, man. And I know that you everywhere you've ever lived, you kept your ear to the ground, man. So what is exactly going on in New York, man? Is it more than what we're seeing on television?
It's weird, man. I have to admit, it's kind of like, for a change, Tony. I'm actually, it's going on in New York, and people are showing up in huge numbers, and people are, as you see on the news, are, kind of taunting the police. People are fed up, but there are other people who go about their business every day and aren't even aware of what's going on. You know what I'm saying? Like I catch the train into Manhattan every day, and aside from when there's protests and the traffic situation, it's almost like it's two different worlds. There's people who are plugged in and participating and on top of it, other people who are just going about their day. And I think sadly that kind of speaks to how we are as Americans, And so it doesn't feel, I guess, when you have smaller places, smaller cities, you can really feel it everywhere. I gotta be honest, guys, I really didn't feel it. This weekend they had the big protest. I was at the Black Expo, so I missed that. I don't have a TV at home, so I didn't even realize there were tens of thousands of people. I was asking afterwards, hey, how'd that turn out? You know what I mean? I wasn't even aware of what's going on. So, it's going down, but at the same time, New York's still New York, Mm-hmm.
So, I know that, like, over the weekend, like, Andrew Hawkins of the Cleveland Browns wore this T-shirt, Justice for Tamir Rice, and there was another gentleman's name on the shirt, too. And the Cleveland Policemen's Union is demanding an apology from the Cleveland Browns, from the NFL, and from Andrew Hawkins. The same as this turd that lives here, Jeff Rorter, did here in St. Louis. And, and to a degree, the NFL says, no. What else? Anything else?
Good, good,
and
good.
I would imagine it's going to be the same thing involving this Cleveland Brown. And the thing to me is, if the police do not realize that there is a problem, and to be clear, police do an incredible job under incredible circumstances. They do great work. Most of them, by far, most police officers are great officers. But if they're not willing to admit that there is some lousy police officers, we're never going to move forward with this conversation, all right? Justice for Tamir Rice. The coroner ruled it a homicide. The police officer who shot Tamir Rice in Cleveland should never have been a police officer. His last job as a cop in another municipality, they put that in memos saying this dude don't even need to be handling a gun. He is that unstable. And yet he got a badge and a gun in Cleveland, and he shot this little boy. And for the police not to realize, you know what, this is a bad situation. We need, because to say that Andrew Hawkins cannot exercise his right of free speech without repercussions is insane. It's insane. It's unrealistic. And it actually, I think, hurts more than anything that the police still do not get it.
Right. The death of a 12-year-old. And the shout out to the football player. He so eloquently explained why he wore the shirt. I don't know if you guys have read that. It's on Facebook. Very well. So much it brought a tear to the old eyes, man. He explained exactly his fear having a 2-year-old. And the thing about, I use this analogy, as you guys know, I'm around barbershops and any place I can talk, I talk. So I have analogies already, but I always talk about the officer-friendly versus the militarized police we face today. This was a prime example. I think about my small town, Springfield, Illinois, and, we had officer-friendlies there. Like the cops were people who grew up there and they knew you and knew your grandparents and stuff. So I can imagine an officer pulls up. The kid is by himself, so it's not like you have a whole bunch of things going on, right? Now, again, Officer Friendly would have probably known the kid or found out what was going on. He would have asked somebody else. He would have drove over and said, hey, you know so-and-so, you get the call, you know what I'm saying? You start asking around the neighborhood. They say, oh, that's so-and-so. That ain't no real gun or whatever. You know what I'm saying? In the conversation. Or even if not that, you pull up and you check out what's going on. This guy pulled up and you saw the video. He like pulled up and just killed the kid, Yeah. And it's just like, there was no human connection at all. Nothing inside of this guy realized, how old was he? 12 to 16? He's a teenager. He's a kid. He's a kid. And so I think that's what speaks to it. It's like the militarization of the interaction changes the dynamic of trying to find out what's going on and taking control of the situation versus killing the enemy. That's what it feels like when you're talking about black men and the police. You're killing the enemy. Eric Garner, get on the ground or we're going to take you out. We're not listening to you. We're not having a conversation. We don't know what's going on. Get on the ground or we're going to take you down versus finding out what's going on. Hey, again, same situation with Eric Garner. Situation, neighborhood. The guy was earlier in the day a hero. They thought they got it mixed up. They say, hey, what's going on, man? Oh, nothing, No. Instead, they're going to put you down first before we can even have a conversation. And then it all goes haywire. And when things started to go haywire, nobody stepped back. It wasn't an assault. He wasn't fighting. He wasn't trying to run. Okay, hold on. Let's go. What's going on? So Officer Friendly versus the new military police it's very frightening, very frightening.
I think that's important. That's why it's important that these marches and protests have continued, that people are continuing to express themselves. And, there's that rub where, here in Washington, there are protests every day, along with the protests that Al Sharpton and other folks had on Saturday. All of those big stories that we followed, the Tamir Rice, Eric Garner, Trayvon Martin's mom was here. All of those stories, all of those folks were here in Washington, D.C. over the weekend. And I think for those that are interested in figuring out what's next, because, a lot of people will show up in March or make a sign and they're like, is this working? There were some clear messages that they were trying to deliver at these marches. And they were saying that, we have to call on Congress to address this issue of police brutality in America. Because if Congress does it, then you can change the law in America. Different police jurisdictions, the way they police in Cleveland is different from the way they police in St. Louis or Seattle. They calling for uniform police change is what they're looking for. And actually, I know that since you've had all of these protests, I know in New York, for example, they've called for a top to bottom. They're going to redo all of the training for New York City police officers, and they're going to talk about that community policing, not that broken window police where cops roll up and they just we see something happen and then we start making something happen and it doesn't turn out well. But that community policing that Mark kind of mentioned as well, having people who live in the community become police officers, that not only has a positive result on the way policing is handled, but think about how you're changing a community, like a Ferguson, Missouri. There are people that live there that need a job, that are qualified enough to get a job on the police force. And there's no excuse for it not happening. So, those kinds of changes are on the horizon, but it's going to take people paying attention and you can call your congressperson, you can call your city council person and voice your opinion about, what you think about the way policing is done. Every city has a civilian oversight board with a police department. I think people should also take a look at that because they review situations that happen in the police department, and they, not the police chief necessarily, but the civilian review board weighs in on a lot of those cases. So, there's things that people can kind of keep an eye on.
Tony,
I was reading about Geraldo Rivera's comments on Fox, where he says, black people kill each other more than police kill black people, but they refuse to address that issue.
White people do too.
He went on to say that the only occasion where black folks come together is when they unite to play the victims. He also criticized LeBron James for wearing a "Can't Breathe" T-shirt, saying he should have wore a T-shirt that says "Be a better father to your sons" instead of "I can't breathe."
Well, Tony, how do you feel? That's your people, Tony. Geraldo Rivera. How you feel?
No, that's not my people. He's like, you know what? I don't know. I mean, the LeBron James thing. Okay, you can't censor. You can't tell people what to wear. Okay, your perspective, your reality is not. I've been saying this for a long time. Until we learn to understand that our life isn't like everybody else's life, and that we're different. We have different situations. We have different circumstances. Black folks know that black folks kill black folks more than police kill black folks. They know that. They know that.
White people kill
and unless you're involved in the black community, I mean, if you wouldn't know that there are countless town hall meetings and symposiums and workshops about how to better the community and reduce this black on black crime. I mean, it's been going on for decades. But unless you're involved, you really don't know because it's not your reality.
Yeah, well,
what do you guys think about what he said?
Well, I think, again, with the misnomer is that white people kill more white people than but it's the same thing. It's the same thing. We only talk about black on black crime. It's white on white crime, Indian on Indian crime. I think we talked about this last week. It's the same. Our number is like 97%. Their number is 82% of most white people are killed by white people. So, you know what I mean? It's like that. That's all just smoke and mirrors. Now, again, like you said earlier, Tony, when I was doing my Bill Cosby analogy, he's mixing apples and oranges. You're talking about two different conversations. Yes, there's a whole bunch of shirts. There's a whole bunch of shirts LeBron James can wear. But we're not talking about that. I think we're talking about what's going on right now, Geraldo. And so that's what people do, and it just adds to, you said piling on. It's really just piling on. It takes the conversation in a whole different direction with a group of people who don't even. It's like, Troy, when you mentioned your comment about Congress and about the government and the government doing something. That's the thing that's when conservatives talk about, I want the government out of my business and all this and that. People of color, since the Civil Rights Movement, have relied on the government to save us from the system. So our take on big government is much different than a white male who's never had to deal with the stuff we had to deal with. So that's one thing, it colors it differently. And then secondly, Geraldo on these shows, these shows that typically will have no black faces, all white conservatives talking about what black people need to do. It's insulting when he says things like that, because yes, I feel like we say it and we can say it, because we are not only people who have been victimized by it, but we're also people who genuinely care and genuinely have a track record of trying to make positive change within the system. But if you're sitting out on sitting out in your on your perch, and you're analyzing this situation and not adding any positive information to it, then I feel like F you, Geraldo, and he's a coworker at my job, but F you, Geraldo. I said it again. It's just, you're not helping anything. He knows that. He's made a lifetime of standing on the back of oppressed people and making comments. So,
Well, I think I'm going to take a slightly different track and say that, the issue here is the uncomfortability that we have, black folks have, when our community problems begin to get aired out. We get real sensitive about that. On a completely different note, Bill Cosby knows all about that, because he started, hitting back against the community, and people are like, "What the hell is Bill doing?" So we've seen this story many times. And, it's easy for a prognosticator like a Geraldo Rivera to push those buttons that really make us uncomfortable. And folks are worried about what's the response going to be to what was said, as opposed to what's going to happen in the community. What are we going to do about it in the community? When you say those things to other groups about whatever the warts that they have in their community, people are like, yeah, we know it. And it's like, we'll deal with it. We're going to fix it. We're going to whatever. But it's not internalized and like, oh man, they talk. Somebody. You feel like somebody's talking about it. We take it a lot more personally than I think. It just is a waste of time. Every comment, it doesn't necessarily have to be answered to.
That's true.
I mean, as Tony said, we know what the problem is. Oh, you're overstating something that we already know is going on.
Would it have been different if it had come from an African-American TV personality, news person, contributor?
Those people, I think, are in a situation where they feel like, oh, why is he telling our story? So,
that's a great point, Troy.
It seems like people are worried about getting caught up in appearances oftentimes rather than really addressing what the problems are. Now, I'm just making a broad general statement. I'm not accusing anybody. But there definitely is a problem with that. We're not really focused on the real issue. What's important here is that people are marching for change in America. That is your absolute right as an American citizen, to voice your opinion, to protest, to ask for change. Congress is supposed to do one job. They are supposed to put forth a budget. That's their job.
Yeah.
That is Congress's job.
Right.
The other aspects of Congress, are completely secondary to the one reason why they gather annually. So most Americans don't really pay attention to that. And we get caught up in what Congress wants to do. Again, you're talking about people that are supposed to be representing you. And if you're not getting what you want, I've said, Mark's heard this 9 million times. If you're not getting what you want out of the person that you elected, then you need to fire them. And yeah. the thing that I've always found interesting about this is, if you talk to any person who's been elected to office, a senator, a congressman, a mayor, a city council person, to a man and a woman, they will say exactly what I said to you. Hey, if I'm not doing the job, fire me. And you know why they're comfortable in saying it? Because they know y'all ain't gonna do it.
That is true. That is true.
They know it.
Saying that for years.
We used to put it, Troy. We used to put it to the test on the show. Like when something was going down, and we called their office because they never get calls. All of a sudden, they got 60 calls because the radio station said to call. You get a quick response. Every single time we did that, we got a response because the average the people don't call. People don't check in. So if they get 60 calls, they're like, what is going on? And that just kind of spoke to that. Yeah, they're not representing. Obviously, look at Congress. They're not representing. They don't give a damn about us. They're not representing us. But again, like Troy said, if you're not stepping up, when was the last time you called your congressman? When was the last time you corresponded with someone you elected? Probably never. Well, there's the answer.
There it is. Because what you're not doing, somebody else definitely is. There are people that make that phone call every day, talk and they worry their congressman. They badger them. Like,
they know my name.
I need this done. And, I mean, how many speeches have you heard from the president on down when they say, I met this woman who lives in Iowa City and she blah, 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 blah. It's a personal connection and a personal story about something that's happening to their constituent. Well, if you're not being a constituent and not participating and not telling them what's going on, they don't know about the fire hydrant that keeps getting open in front of your house that's killing your grass. They don't know about a trash can that's overflowing because people are dumping from another community in your trash can or whatever the case may be. They don't know about it because you're not saying anything about it.
So this Sony email hacking, not even just email, just started out as something else, but then they got to the emails, and they say there's a lot more to come. Really has gotten people's attention. Amy Pascal runs Sony Entertainment, and some saying that she's going to have to resign based on some of her emails.
She's going to have to resign based on the look.
What was that again?
She's going to have to resign based on that look that Brad Pitt's wife gave her.
Yeah.
Angelina Jolie was like, I mean, really?
Is it? Are we going into an area here? I mean, what was exchanged and everything? I get all that, but they were private emails. Is there a certain expectancy of this is off limits, or I guess not, the way people are going in on everybody involved in this?
Well, let me tell you something. In 2014, this is Troy Johnson's tip for you. If you want to be racist, if you want to make some kind of comment that we all know you shouldn't be making, my suggestion is you do it ear to ear. Do it ear to ear. Hey, look, come here. Let me tell you something. Just because if you do it on a phone, if you do it on the internet, hello, all of that is in cyberspace. Remember that word, cyberspace. Right. So it's.
So the lesson here is don't trust emails, don't trust phone calls.
If you're trying to be racist, you want to show somebody a titty, and you're worried about it, do it in person. Don't do it over the internet. You just, we've seen this 5 million times. So I think the issue here is, the folks at Sony are pushing back because, now all this information is out there, and they're threatening the press. If you release any more of this information and report on it, then we're going to sue you. Well, it's part of a news story. You're gonna scare the press? Come on, bring it on.
Yeah, you can never scare the press. Is not scared hardly ever, if ever.
No, please.
What's frightening is how stupid people higher ups seem to be. Troy Johnson and I were able to intercept. We witnessed an email calling for the demise of our job. That eventually did happen. And it was amazing to see that insight into when people want to get rid of you or whatever, and how conversations go.
And how it's justified.
Right.
It was.
And how they lie. And how they lie in denial, like Sony's doing right now.
Yes. And, and you're right, Mark, to experience it firsthand, it's interesting because, basically it feels like, somebody's like sitting around on a Saturday, thinking about their job, and then they come up with a bright idea. I know, I'm going to scuttle our morning show so I can do what I want to do. Mm-hmm. It didn't take into account what we did. It didn't take into account the kind of work ethic that we had. And I think the thing that was funny about the demise of the Big Fat Morning Show was, while people were smiling in our face, lying to us, and plotting what the next chapter for the station was going to be, we had some of the highest numbers that we ever had. Which was kind of interesting is like, and we got blown out, or I got blown out at least at the time, but
Well, mine came later.
I mean,
yeah.
Oprah was on Entertainment Tonight last night saying that she was not going to stand in judgment of people whose comments were private, and I, I'm surmising now, but she was summarizing. She was saying that it isn't fair to do that because these emails were not intended to be public, and therefore we shouldn't judge these folks on that. But then you also have to realize, Oprah's got skin in the game, though.
Of course.
She may be the most powerful woman in entertainment or whatever, but she's still got skin in the game, right? And she still needs Sony to help her make movies. She's not going to spend all her money making movies. She needs, she needs the studio, so she's going to walk that line. And I think we have to keep that in mind, right?
I think you're right, Tony. I saw Seth Rogen, who's in the film, was on the Howard Stern show, and he was talking about, Seth Rogen over the top, just loud, these emails are that, he's the kind of guy that, at least in presentation, as a character, would give a damn. Who cares? I can hear him saying, "Who cares if they got the email?" But he works in Hollywood, so he had that same kind of fire. But he was like, this is illegal. It's like somebody handed him that memo, and Howard Stern was there to back it up. I agree. These are people's personal emails. This should not happen. Americans should be upset about it. Blah 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 blah. Come on, man.
Well, let me say this. This is our teaching or learning moment, whatever you want to say. Because I think when this has happened to you, as it happened to me and Troy, something happens inside, and you realize whatever you're doing, whatever job you're in that you love so much or hate so much, whatever situation that you really enjoy, realize that person who's above you not only has full control over your life, they don't like you as much as you think they do. Or they don't hate you as much as they think they do. They don't care about you as much as you think they care. Get your life. You know what I mean? Focus on the things that are important to you, your family, what you want to do. No matter how cushy or how great that job is, that person above you doesn't really give a damn about you. Nobody loves you more than you love yourself. So take the criticism and the positive comments with a grain of salt, and always be conscious of that, because I think that's the best thing, because you have a certain sense of, I have a friend that I'm very close to. There's going to be some changes in her situation, and she doesn't necessarily want them, but it is what it is, because you don't own it and it's not yours. Yeah. So always be aware of that and don't get lulled into that sense. And when these emails come out, that's what happens, I think. It's a chance for you to see candidly what people think about you. And even if you're Angela Jolie and have all the money in the world, it proves that it still hurts. It still makes you feel less than.
And look at the situation that piggybacked off of that with Kevin Hart, who was wrapped up in those conversations that were leaked. So he said, hey, I'm not gonna none of this is impacts me in the kind of way that I'm not gonna give any power to any of this. Blah 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 whatever, and I'm doing my own thing. I'm making my life happen. I'm reaching my dreams. Sony was like, who knew that Kevin Hart could be shut down? Kevin Hart got something to say every day of the year, and you haven't heard him for 3 or 4 days now, with a movie coming out.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah. Shut him down.
That's one thing about men on whatever. We will not be stopped. We own this ish. Right, Tony?
We're independent.
Right, Tony?
We're not distributed by Sony or anybody, man. So
or anybody.
Anybody at all. So we're at about 43 minutes, man. What do you guys have?
It just hit me the 12-year-old. Really, for some reason, man, it's really got me, It's just like
the Tamir Rice thing?
Yeah, it's just so inhumane. I mean, a 12-year-old, dude. It's just like...
this little boy was tried, convicted, and executed in 2 seconds. Literally in 2 seconds, he was tried and executed by someone who had no business with a badge or a gun.
You know what got me, man? I thought about all of us as little boys, man. They showed a video, and he grabs like a snowball and throws it. You know what I mean? It's just like you're hanging out with this fake gun, doing what boys do, and man, so sad, And that one, and then to be honest, and Tony, I feel what you're saying, but the Camille Cosby, that kind of surprised me. Because I guess it's hard for me to, again, I think my expectation was that Bill Cosby would face it. And the fact, like you said, Tony, his strategy, it's a part of his strategy. I just felt like it's just the worst strategy in the world. And
yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that's the case. I'm just saying that on his level, there has to be some sort of strategy because the stakes are higher than you, me, or Troy could ever imagine. You know, so and I would imagine that you know, based on if he said anything, if he even said, I remember having dinner with Beverly Johnson or one of these other accusers and stuff, that potentially could now that opens up an investigation. Now that's like, okay, let's go back to this restaurant. Let's see who remembers how was she acting normal, and then towards the end of the day was she acting like she was on something? Aha, now she was acting that way. So based on anything he says, and I'm just guessing here, right?
Yeah.
I'm just guessing that it could go in so many different directions. That's why I have been saying that everything he's saying about this has to be strategized, and it has to be like, it literally has to be, I mean, it has to be a home run every time because he can't afford anything else because the stakes are so high. Am I off the mark here? Yeah, probably, but I'm just throwing it out there.
I don't know. I didn't do it. I don't know. I didn't do it. I did not do it. I'm innocent. I'm the man you thought I always was.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's a bad Bill Cosby.
I mean, you know what? And you're right. Sometimes the simplest thing may take care of the whole thing. You're exactly right. All I'm saying is, I don't know. Maybe there was a strategy that was badly used. Maybe not. Maybe he's working by himself. I can't imagine that he is.
Well,
and you're exactly right. Sometimes you can say, you know, 4 words, I didn't do it.
Looking like,
and that could be enough. I don't know.
Unless he did
the
do
court
it.
of public opinion is on steroids now because of social media.
It's looking like he's working by himself, in my opinion.
It does look like he's working by himself.
He shows up and tells an AP reporter, "Hey, do you mind not trying to do the story?"
That's a good Cosby right there.
So I mean, and Camille, Camille was like, "Oh Lord, here we go." I think you're right, Tony. He's not operating in this situation. It's the 21st century, and I was saying this to somebody the other day. I was thinking that he would be a guy who potentially, before all of this came out, was about to have a new television show, was about to potentially have his own network. I've heard some rumors about that. Could he not be that media savvy in this? I mean, nobody's around. I mean, he would have to use. Well, actually, I was going to say he was going to have to use Twitter. He did use Twitter, but then he didn't use that right either, because that.
Well, but I think older
that messed him up too.
Older folks like him that are in the entertainment business, I think they have completely, and maybe for good reason, in this case, I think Bill Cosby underestimated the power of social media and the backlash that it created. And I think he underestimated that. And I think a lot of older performers or people in the industry probably do, because they're kind of late to the game when it comes to social media, you know. And I think in his situation, he clearly underestimated the backlash that social media would cause in regards to him and his brand.
Yeah.
Well, well, Troy, you just answered my conspiracy question. You said his own network. He was supposed to get his own network. You say, Troy?
I've heard that. Yeah, I've heard. But I mean, we knew there was.
There's your answer right there.
So
there's the lie right there.
So because that was going to happen, somebody's going to shut him down.
Well, I mean that to me that makes perfect sense. Bill Cosby, Oprah's one thing, Bill Cosby's another. And there were rumors that when Bill Cosby, tried to buy NBC, that that's why his son got killed. That was always been a whatever. But
I've never heard that one.
Yeah, they said that it was so real because you didn't think about it at the time. Bill Cosby was on top of everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And NBC was for sale, and just kind of it all went away. But anyway, that's another show, another time.
Well, there you go. So we'll leave it there then. I guess we're at 50 minutes. So appreciate you watching Men on Everything. We do this once a week where we just talk about stuff that's in the news. And if you don't mind sharing this and reposting, that would help us a lot to get the message out there, because we're a group of men with with no advertising budget. So we kind of have to rely on social media and you to help us out, though. But we appreciate the love, and it means a lot. Of thumbs up goes a long ways. And I don't know if I told you guys about how I got informed by YouTube that because we had because it's mostly our shows that generate the most views. 150,000 views in 3 months. That it kind of opened the door a little bit for possibly a consultation with YouTube on how to expand the channel.
All right. Yeah.
So that's because you guys. I mean, I do videos on my own, but they don't get nearly the views that we do as a group. So I just put that out there. But yeah, I got informed about that. So that was actually that message came on a down day. And before I started working again, and it kind of lifted my spirits. It did lift my spirits a lot. It made me feel like I was doing something right.
Well, Tony,
working with you guys and getting it out there. So I think
Tony, wait a minute. You're saying we've got over 100,000 views?
Your thumbs up and you're subscribing to the channel. All that helps for us to go in the direction that we want to go to, and that's to be independent of everybody, able to do our own thing.
Tony, you're saying we got over 100,000 views on YouTube?
150. I think it said we had 150,000 views in the last 3 months or something like that.
Tony, that needs to be on some type of graphic. Hello, marketing.
I can't do everything, man.
You know what I'm saying? Man, put that on some graphic. Put it on something. Put it on something, baby. Let's go.
I got to reread the message and all that, but it was something that we achieved something in 3 months that opened up the doors. Now, I know that if we can get to 10,000 subscribers, which right now we're at about 2,350. But if we get to 10,000, that will open up a lot of doors for us, and it would let us use YouTube studios like in Los Angeles for free to do content and stuff using their technology that would take it to a whole nother level.
Man, we got to do that, man.
If you can get your friends in New York and your friends in DC and my friends in St. Louis to just subscribe,
well, Tony,
I think we will do pretty good. So if you can help us grow the channel of doing that, it doesn't cost anything to subscribe. All that means is you're going to get a notice that we're. What are you laughing at me for?
Because Tony, it's the first time we've heard that we got this many views. We thought it was 6
I'm sorry?
people, man.
Oh man!
Say again.
It's the first time we heard that we had 100,000 views. We thought it was like 10 people, man.
No.
We thought we didn't know people were actually watching this. Oh my God! Let me get off my inflatable bed and get a desk.
Well, go in and demand a raise today. So also, I do a tech show called iTony Tech, which is basic tech news. We're not trying to rebuild computers or explain to you exactly what RAM does. It's just simple tech news for non-geeks. It's called iTony Tech. Actually, it is actually being featured on a weekly basis with Deluxe Magazine on their website.
Go ahead, Tony.
So it's called
Tony, you need a PR person, okay?
Yeah. And not Bill Cosby's.
No.
Yes, Tony has Bill Cosby's PR person.
Is that what it's like?
Anyway, thank you so much for watching. In New York City, that is Mark Clark. In Washington, D.C., that is Troy Johnson. I'm Tony Scott in St. Louis. We are Men on Everything, and we'll see you next time.